Okay, great, thanks.
James Lipton, you are celebrating your 20th Emmy nomination for Inside the Actors Studio. What do you recall about that first time going to the Emmy ceremony for this show?
I'm sorry, say again?
What do you recall the first time you went to the Emmy ceremony for this particular show?
The first time at the Emmy ceremony was, of course, thrilling. We were only 2 or 3 years old. We had no idea how we would be received by the public. We were a brand new phenomenon, and lo and behold, we had an Emmy nomination. It was thrilling, of course.
It took a long time to get that Emmy win. What do you recall about that night and picking up that trophy for the first time?
Well, that was extraordinary. It did take a long time. It was the sweet 16th nomination when we won the Emmy. And I was sitting in my seat without any particular hope. I'm honored as always to be nominated. Imagine to be nominated out of that enormous number of television programs. And then suddenly I heard our name. And we had, I think, about 17 seconds to get to the stage and make our remarks. I ran, I never ran so fast in my life, down the aisle, up the steps, and lo and behold, there it was in my hand, at last, an Emmy. It was a great thrill, of course. But interestingly enough, every one of them has been, every nomination has been a thrill. Every time I've gone to the Emmys, it's been a thrill. It means a great deal. Think of the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of programs out there, and to be selected among 4 or 5 for a nomination. That for me is just it is a genuine honor. That's not a cliche.
Well, as you well know, it gets harder and harder every year because of just the sheer number of TV shows that are on now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say again.
The sheer number of TV shows that are on now, it gets harder and harder to get into that group every year.
Absolutely. And each year I wait, and lo and behold, we've been nominated again, and it's always a good feeling.
Now, this year's episode that you have submitted for the Emmy voters to watch, you had several great ones this year, but you had the cast of girls on. What was a favorite memory of that particular show?
Oh, there are so many memories of that show. The very fact that it was called Girls. This is our season of the women. The amazing thing is that we have Jessica Chastain, and we have girls, we have Viola Davis. I mean, it's rare that Inside the Actors Studio has almost exclusively women on its show. And this year we achieved that, and we're very proud of it and very excited about it.
Speaking of women, and I'm going to ask you about several people, over this 20-something years that you've been on, you've interviewed obviously all the greats, but some of them are nominated for the Emmy Awards this year, so you might be seeing them there. I wanted to ask you about a few of them. Let's start with Jessica Lange. What was a favorite memory from the time that you interviewed Jessica Lange?
Jessica Lange was, I knew her, and we were familiar with each other. I don't know all of them before they come to the stage, but I did know her, and it was for me a very personal experience talking to Jessica. I'd known her for a long time.
What makes her so, not so special, but what makes her special? She's now won a Tony Award, several Emmy Awards, 2 Oscars. What is it about her that has appealed to people around the world for so long?
I can't answer for the people around the world. I don't know what appeals to them, but I do know what appeals to me. She is a genuine person. She's the real McCoy. Every minute that she speaks, you can trust she's speaking to you, and she's telling you something that she really sincerely believes.
Her co-star on Feud, Susan Sarandon, you've also interviewed her.
Oh, yes. I've interviewed her a couple of times, and Susan has been on the show for a long time. She is also somebody that I know personally. It does make some difference when I know the person as I know Susan, and that made a difference, I think, with her.
In her particular case, you don't have to wonder what she's thinking. She's going to let you know.
Oh, she's going to let you know. Yeah, you don't have to wait around for her opinion. You're going to get one.
Anthony Hopkins is nominated this year for Westworld. Tell us a little bit about that time interviewing him.
Well, Hopkins was a great thrill for me. He's a very great actor. And we had an interesting experience with him. He had to get out of there. He had to fly away from our shoot. to go somewhere, and his representative was with him, and she said, "Now you've got to get him out of here by 11 o'clock." I said, "Oh, I will. Don't worry, I will." And so we finished the interview, and I went back to the green room with his rep waiting for him, and he didn't appear. And so we rushed back out on the stage, and there he was with the students. He would not leave. He would not stop talking with the students. We are a school, you know. We're the Actors Studio Drama School at Pace University. And we are the only 501c3 not-for-profit educational institution that owns a show on television. And Tony would, every time we tried to get him off the stage, he went back with the students. And he finally left there at about midnight because he simply couldn't stop talking with the students. The students, for many of our guests, are the most exciting part of the show. We're in 94 million homes in America. We're in 125 countries around the world. So our students come to us from everywhere. And the result is that when it comes time for the students and the guest to interact personally and closely in the classroom session at the conclusion of the show, it becomes a very, very intimate relationship. And some of them can't, I mean, Dave Chappelle left at 2 o'clock in the morning. Barbara Streisand left, and I threw her out. I said, these kids have to go to class in the morning, get out of here. The relationship between the guest and the students is, I think, the most important relationship on our show. It's not between me and the guest. That has some importance, I suppose. But what really counts is the relationship between the guest and the students. They know, the guests know why they're there, the students know why they're there. They're master's degree candidates, and they're really eager to learn, and they do.
One of my other favorites that's nominated this year at the Emmys that just commanded the stage and thrilled the students, it seemed like, was Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey was in every degree a surprise. The imitations that he did on the show were incomparable, unforgettable. But the most important thing that happened was at the end of the show, I thought the show was over, and suddenly he called me back to stage and he said, by the way, Bravo has commissioned the great New York Times theater cartoonist, Hirschfeld, to do a cartoon of you. And they brought it out and presented it to me, and he presented it to me. Kevin Spacey himself presented it to me. It was one of the great thrills of my life to be in a Hirschfeld cartoon. And it was thanks to Kevin that it came out on the stage and was presented to me. And I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. It was very personal. We know each other well. We've known each other a long time. And I'm a great admirer of that man.
And he did a wonderful job hosting the Tony Awards this summer.
Oh, he did indeed. He's very clever. He can do everything. He can sing, he can dance. He's a comedian. He can do drama, God knows.
Another person, first ever Emmy nomination this year, which is hard to believe, but he's rarely done television, really never done television, is Robert Deniro. And a lot of people have had trouble interviewing him, but he seemed to warm up to you and your audience.
Well, we're both members of the Actors Studio. He is a longtime member of the Actors Studio, very famous, of course, member of the Actors Studio. I'm a vice president of the Actors Studio. We know each other at the studio. And so we have a relationship that is, again, personal and that has everything to do with the craft. We made a decision 23 years ago that we would stick to craft, that we would not deal in gossip. We would not deal in the common currency of talk shows. And I was afraid that it would make us very dull. It didn't. Because when I ask a person about his or her craft, about the things that taught him the most or her the most, that mean the most to him or her, I discovered that it opened a door that I had not expected to open to the most intimate details of the guest's life and career. That is the biggest surprise for me in the history of Inside the Actors Studio. And Deniro was a perfect example of it.
One of my favorites ever, getting off the Emmys for a moment, maybe one of the best you've ever done was Robin Williams. I just hated when he passed away. And you and Bravo were so clever to rerun that whole episode the week after he died. A favorite memory from that particular session?
Well, of course, it's the pashmina. At one point I asked him, what are you doing up there? Are you thinking faster than the rest of us? And he decided to demonstrate it. And he came down to the edge of the stage and he saw this young woman sitting there with a beautiful pashmina around her neck. And he said, may I have that? She gave it to him. He then did 5 minutes of improvisation with the pashmina, going from one character to another. That is the most famous 5 minutes in the history of the show. And what he didn't know was that the person from whom he took it was my goddaughter, and that we had given her the pashmina at Christmas as our Christmas present to her. And what he did with that pashmina was what became world famous. When we did our 250th episode, we asked our public, our viewers out there, to choose their favorite guest of the history of the show. And they chose him, they chose that moment, and we are forever wedded to Robin Williams. Unfortunately, it's hard to say this, but because I'm the only host, I believe, who has ever asked all of his guests over the years, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? I've become America's eulogist. And so I was called, and I was on the air for 24 hours straight when Robin tragically died.
You've had so many great ones over the years. Who were some that you really had to chase down? It took forever to get them lined up.
I was asked forever, what guests do you want the most? And I replied to Marlon Brando, who was by then reclusive, Jack Nicholson, who won't appear on TV. But then one day I realized what the answer was, the real answer was. And my answer was, the night that one of our students, graduated students of the Actors Studio Drama School, has achieved so much that he or she appears on that stage and sits down next to me, will be the night I've waited for. And of course, that was Bradley Cooper. Bradley, who had asked questions from the audience of Deniro, of Sean Penn. And now suddenly here he was on the stage. The two of us looked at each other and burst into tears. It was almost impossible for us to continue. We did with some difficulty, but with memorable results.
That was a great one. I can still remember him as a young man, asking those questions. That was wonderful that he has accomplished so much.
I can remember him when he auditioned for us. If I had said no to him, he would have gone on to get his degree from Georgetown, going probably into foreign affairs or something like that. But I said yes, and the rest is history. When he did The Elephant Man on Broadway, that was his thesis, his master's degree thesis at our school. So there's a very close connection with Bradley.
One final question, and I'm sure we're going to see you here in a few weeks at the Creative Arts Emmys as well. We'll talk to you there too. These cards, these famous cards of yours from all these years, do you keep those in like a museum or a library? Where do those go when you finish?
We have them. I don't keep them. They're kept down at our office and tried back up.
That's people might want to come tour those sometimes. They're so famous as part of your history.
Well, they're our legacy. They're certainly my legacy. But the thing that amazes me is that with all of the things that have happened over the last 23 years, all the strings I've added to my bow, the one that amazes me most is that recently I have added another category. I'm now an inventor.
Inventor of what?
Well, I studied ballet for many years, and the result was that I had arthritic knees, as all dancers do, rather sooner than most other people. And I was told by doctors and chiropractors, the only solution at night, when you wake up with pain, is to put a pillow between your knees. Have you ever heard anybody say that? Sleep with a pillow between your knees, and that will help you. It doesn't help you because the pillow migrates, and now you wake up twice as often, once for the pain and once for the pillow. And over and over again during the night, you keep waking up and trying to find that pillow. And then I had a sudden inspiration. One night, after a long sleepless night, I said to myself, what if the pillow were attached to me? What if I could somehow attach it to my knee so that it moved with me, cushioning my knee no matter what position sleep took me to. That resulted in 3 years of research, intensive development, breakthrough materials, and cutting-edge techniques. The result was something called Kneesies, Knesease, and it's not a miracle cure for arthritis. It has no side effects, doesn't require a prescription, and it's a pain averter. And this is, if I may I? This is what
Sure.
Dr. Daniel Richmond, who's the director of pain management at New York's famous hospital for plastic surgery, said about it. After evaluating every progressive development of Kneesies, I can say that it does exactly what it's designed to do. And if there were anything like it anywhere in the world, I would know. There isn't. And as a result, people out there are now ordering Kneesies and solving a problem that has never been solved before. And it's something I'm happy to say that I invented. I'm finally giving back.
Wow, and that's really improved your sleeping at night?
Completely. The pillow's gone. Everybody who has tried it has said the same thing. The pillow is gone. Problem is solved. I now sleep at night. I do not wake because of knee pain. And that is what Kneesies does. And our website, would you like to know our website?
Sure.
The website is knesease.com, all one word, kneesies.com. And anybody going to that website will get the whole story. I hope that I've done something finally that is doing some real good for the public.
Well, you have with that, and also with your show. I've probably seen almost every episode you've ever done, and it's just a tremendous honor to speak with you today.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
A tremendous honor to speak with you today about your new invention as well as the show.
Thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you.